you know what? Command words like this drill sergeant here can be real pains in the backsides. You open your page and they shout and scream at you using far too many words, and in the stress of the exam, in the moment, you can get lost. 4 of those biggest culprits are right here, and we're going to have a little look at them today. So without further ado, let's pick them apart a little bit. This is by no means a silver bullet. You're not going to walk away from this video having an encyclopedic knowledge of these 4, but it might help you out a little bit. Let's have a look. First of all of these are evaluative. They're all pretty much asking for the same thing. They want you to look at something in detail, so a really in-depth explanation, and then they want you to come to a judgment about something. Okay, they want you to decide about something. Okay. And within that, you need to really get into the finer detail using lots of that AO1 and AO2. With regards to what they are actually looking for, when you get to a question like this, you need to slow down and just read that question carefully. A lot of students see it, worry, switch off, and then they get lost. Slow down, read the question, book it. Does it want you to offer some judgment? Do you have to decide whether you agree or disagree with something? Or is it just looking for a really in-depth explanation? But, you've got to look into it, and we'll have a look at one of these in a minute. Now, usually for a question with this command word, you need an opposing argument. You need an other side. Okay, so a side that maybe wouldn't agree with you. Now, this side doesn't have to fully disagree with you. It could just be a slightly contrasting argument. And say if your first paragraph is really big and your second paragraph is going to be your opposing argument, it doesn't have to be a massive paragraph. It could just be a few sentences on just that other side, just to show the examiner that you've considered it. Once you've bugged your question, you're thinking about that ECS, that evidence comment stretch, and your stretch really wants to link back to one of the words you've highlighted in the question, because it just helps to keep you right and targeted and moving forward. With that in mind, when you read the question at the very start, you need to think about where you're going. Know where you're going to go. How will you conclude your answer to this question? Where are you finishing? Because if you know where you're going to finish, you can plan your journey to that point. So often students don't think about how they're going to conclude, so they get lost on the way. And they eventually arrive at a conclusion that hasn't really got much to back it up. So you've got to bear that in mind. And with these, I guess with all of your questions, you need lots of knowledge, okay, as detailed as you can get it. But I'm going to show you a little bit later that sometimes with these questions, it's good to know just how you can snatch a few marks if you're really not sure. Now, AQA often, when you are making your judgment, they want you to use phrases like this. They actually provide this for teachers to use, okay? So they want you to really say whether you slightly agree, whether you completely agree, whether you think it will be completely unsuccessful, if you'll be an enormous impact. Give some kind of amount to your opinion. It gives you a little bit more weight to write about. It gives you a little bit more sort of gusto in your writing. Okay. Now, often we probably won't completely agree with something. There's always an opposing side. So just bear this in mind. Have a pause if you want to take some notes. Now we can have a look at one of these questions and assess. We've got one here. Have a little look. Now, obviously our command word here is assess. And then you've got transport improvements to the UK economy. Key top tip here, plural. So to get anywhere near 9 marks on this, you really want to be talking about more than one. It's 9 marks, so this will be ECS times 3 with a conclusion. Plenty of specific AO1, so not just better train networks. We're talking about HS2. We're not talking about motorway improvements. We're talking about smart motorway. Okay, we're talking about specific AO1 to the United Kingdom. That AO2 is really going to link into how transport actually builds up the economy. You're going to want plenty of this means that, as a result, in consequence. And you want to be using those scale-based judgments. I strongly agree that transport improvements are important to the UK economy. Now, AQA actually provide us an answer for this. This got 7 marks. Have a pause, have a read. Off you go. Now, I'm sure after you read that, when you start to pick it apart, there's actually not that much happening here. AO1, knowledge of specific transport improvements. This is strong. HS2, 50 billion. Liverpool 2, 500 million. Largest transport ships in the world. 20 million on adding lanes to motorways. Lots of AO1. And that AO2 is really strong as well. Decreasing commuting time, boost cooperation. Jobs will be created in the new port. You can see here for this assess command word, the student has really gone into detail on this. And the AO3, that application, you can see bits of it here. This will increase productivity, boosting trade to the United Kingdom, specifically the Northwest. Now, what you could probably see here is the AO3 is not as strong as the other 2 AOs. And the student has got some wonderful AO1 up here. But they've kind of not used it. They've kind of just popped this onto their answer. And it's great AO1, but they've not really used it in the rest of their answer. They need to link back to this. So in terms of the grade this got, well, it got 7. And this is what the examiner said. AO1 level 3. AO2 level 3. And then AO3's got its level 2 there. Okay, so the assessment is all positive. So what this really needed was a little bit of an opposing side, okay, a little bit of balance to this. So potentially here, the student could have talked about how the new lanes to motorways to reduce traffic, that actually isn't always the case, and sometimes it can actually increase traffic. The student could also have mentioned about the pollution that would add to the atmosphere as well. AO3 here, the examiner also notes that the AO1 used in the top is not linked back. They don't really use it, they don't really mention it as much. And the conclusion's a little bit vague. And you can see here the examiner is also saying, where's that amount? Extremely important, somewhat important. Given that amount's really important. Now, this is a strong answer. 7 marks on a 9 marker is a strong response. It's a good answer, this. But what I hope you can see is that actually there isn't that much to this. It's not university level. It's nothing that's out of the reach of any of us. But again, this is just an example of where, in an assess, that balance is needed. Okay. Really, really important. And you can see actually also in this answer, they're always linking back to the question, the economic development of the United Kingdom. Another one, have a look at this. To what extent has urban change created environmental challenges in a UK city you have studied? 9 marks. So you're bugging it. You are looking at what urban change and environmental challenges are. So urban change is that change in a city's character and culture. Environmental challenges, you're talking about pollution, lack of green space, so you're really picking apart those things. You may be offering a bit of explanation to them. To what extent? It wants your opinion. It wants you to give an amount. I strongly agree that urban change has created environmental challenges. I somewhat disagree that it has created environmental challenges. So know immediately where you're going to go. For my students in my school, this will be Sheffield. And again, know where you're going to go. Do you believe that there has been environmental challenges or do you not? It's up to you. You've got to decide. There's no right or wrong answer to this. You've got to think about it. Here you're thinking about, for my students, the tick cross model. So for me, I do believe urban changes created environmental challenges. So I would have a tick to say why I do believe it's created challenges. I would have a cross to disagree and maybe talk about improved green space in Sheffield. But then I'd have another tick to say why I agree with that conclusion. And my stretch on the ECS is always linking back to urban change or environmental challenges, or both. It's always linking back. And you need that balance. It's really important that you've got that balance, that opposing side. It doesn't have to be huge, but the examiner just needs to see that you've thought about it. Lots of AO1, lots of key knowledge. with these questions, it's very easy to give very general any town answers. So keep it specific to Sheffield or the city you have studied. Now, what you've also got to bear in mind is if you have an absolute brain dead, it's all gone moment, there is space for you to get at least 3 marks on this question. And this is where these 9 markers are so expansive. To get the top level 9, level 3 9 marks, yeah, that's quite tough. You've got to get lots of AO 1, 2 and 3 in. But to get at least 3 marks, it's not always that hard. You know, max level 1, even if you've not named a city, max level 1, if you talk about Rio. So maybe if you get to this question and you're like, oh God, I can't remember anything about Sheffield, but I know lots about Rio. Why not? You know, it might get you a few marks. Of course, if you are absolutely unsure. And look, max level 1 for non-environmental challenges. So say if you don't know anything about environmental challenge, but you could talk about social challenge, it might snatch you 3 marks. What I'm trying to say with these kind of questions is never ever leave them unanswered, even if you are absolutely, unequivocally lost. Okay, bug it, rip it, and write down what you do know. Bullet point it if you have to. Okay. Again, I only advocate doing this sort of thing if you are absolutely, you do not know. But what I'm trying to say is never leave them unfinished. If you know something, get it down. Okay. It's always good to be in the know. It always is. And like I say, just don't leave them blank, please. Okay, to finish off. When you're coming across these big command words, these big questions, just the first thing, just slow down, all right? Slow down, read the question, just absorb it, take it in. Even I, as a geography teacher, need to do that sometimes with these questions. I need to slow down and read them properly. Bug it, and then maybe rip it, which is where you start to flow diagram away from the question and regurgitate what you do know, create a fluid plan. And then once you've come up with something, just start. Just start writing. And before you know it, you will begin to pull something together. Starting is the hardest bit. Once you've gotten going, often your instincts and your revision will kick in. But again, know where you're going to go. So when you come across these big questions, slow, bug, and go. And sure enough, you'll find your way to the end. Guys, I hope that was really useful for you. Come and find me if you need anything. And thank you, as always. I'll see you soon.